Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. I'm so sorry it took me a minute to put out a video, but you know, October was just crazy with field trips, pumpkin patches, Halloween. I had one of my kids had a birthday. It's just been a lot. But today, I have an amazing story for you guys. Absolutely amazing. And it was hard for me to find a lot of information about this one. So I did my best because this took place in Indonesia, okay? And this man is nicknamed the Black Magic Killer, okay? So I am mixing it up a little bit today because this man is a serial killer, or was a serial killer, but we're gonna look at it from his stance on what he thinks that he did and what he thinks it was doing for him. Okay? Now, if you're new here, my name is Brandy, and what I do is I tell spooky stories about witches or shamans or werewolves or whatever, any kind of weird history, and while I tell you guys about it, I put makeup on my face. So, if that sounds awesome to you, definitely hit that subscribe button. I'm almost to 700 followers. I'm like so close, so close. So it'd be great if you hit that subscribe button. But anyway, let's go ahead and get this party started. Now, the Black Magic Killer was named actually Ahmad Suradji. Okay, and I'm probably not saying that right, but we're gonna say Ahmad because I know I can say that. He was born January 10th of 1949. So yes, this one is kind of you know, it's very, very recent. Kind of. Anyway, first, we don't know much about like his parents, what they did, or anything like that. But we do know that he started out as a cattle breeder. I can't talk today for a while. Okay. And then he decided to become a shaman. Now, in Indonesian culture, that's actually pretty common for people to practice shamanism, which is the element of having the ability to heal people or to do magic by enhancing somebody's beauty or helping them make more money, things like that. He decided he's going to be a shaman. Nobody has taught him anything. He's not like from a long line of shamans. Just keep that part in mind, okay? This man also went by several other different names, okay? A Dukun that's the name of a shaman in Indonesia, okay? So he was Dukun, and then Nasib Klewang, and then Datuk, which is another word for, you know, shaman in Indonesia. Maringgi, and he was also called the sorcerer. So in his mind, you know, he had a little bit of power. You know, he was not rich, he was not living in like the wealthiest neighborhood or anything like that. I mean, there were sugarcane plantations around him, so you know that there was a lot of hardworking people in this area. It was very poor and very rural. And so he kind of took advantage of that. So after a while, Ahmad had started to get a clientele. You know, people started hearing about Ahmad and his shamanistic healing. And because of the area that he was in, you know, in a poor area, people were always coming to him to either be more beautiful or to have more money, to be more rich, to marry a man that's rich, you know, I mean, all these different types of things. And so he had a lot of women come into his house and asking for magic spells and stuff like this. Okay. Sounds totally awesome, right? Totally fun. Well, one night, Ahmad has a dream. And he dreams of his father, okay? And in this dream, and we, you know, shamans, when they dream, they really do take it pretty literal, you know. In this dream, his dad told him that he had to drink the saliva of 72 women in order to enhance his powers as a shaman. That's what I said. In 1986, he has this dream, and he says that his dad tells him he needs to drink the saliva of 72 women. Okay? So he wakes up and he's like, well, how am I going to drink 72 women saliva, when I'm really impatient and I'm really power hungry and I want all this power right now? So what do you think that he does? He starts talking to his clientele that come and see him, okay? And depending on what they're coming there for, he'll tell them, okay, I have a ritual that we're gonna do, and you have to participate in this ritual, okay? So if you don't mind, ma'am, follow me out here to the sugarcane fields, okay? Come on out and follow me out here to the sugarcane field, and I am going to do a ritual on you, and then you will be pretty or rich or whatever it is that you're asking for. And so they would follow him because, like I say, these are poor people in rural areas. They're not very educated, and so they thought they were doing what the shaman asked them to do. So they walk with him out to the sugarcane. Now, this is where the whole ritual begins, okay? And to him, this is a ritual, okay? He's not looking at this as murder. He's looking at this as, this is how I'm going to gain the power that my dad said that I'm going to get by drinking the saliva of 72 women. And so he starts a ritual. Now, what did this ritual entail? Because I told you, he done walked them out there to the cane field of their own accord, okay? So once he gets them out there, he buries them halfway up to their waist, okay? So, they're like still talking and stuff, he's got them thinking, this is part of the ritual. This is all part of it. Just chill, yeah? Chill. Once he had them buried halfway up to their waist, he then strangled them with a cord, okay, until they were no longer alive. All right. Now, he would then afterwards drink their saliva that came from their mouth, okay. This is all part of his ritual. This is what he was doing to enhance his power as a shaman. Okay, so he would do all these things, and after they were dead, he would drink their saliva. Well, then he would take the clothes off the body, bury the body with the head pointing toward his house, okay? Because the head, he felt like he was getting all the energy from that person, and that energy was being directed towards his house, and that was making him more and more powerful. So the whole entire process, from the strangulation to the burial to the stripping of the clothes to pointing their head to his house, these are all things that were part of the ritual that he believed in his head was going to give him more magical powers as a shaman / mystic healer, okay? Because he's taken his dream incredibly literally, obviously, and he was definitely going to do this thing. And he wasn't going to wait for 72 women to pass away so that he could drink their saliva. So what does he start doing? Like I told you guys, he starts taking women that come to his house for workings, for his shamanic workings, and he takes them to the sugarcane field, buries them halfway up to their waist, kills them by strangulation, and then buries their body with their head positioned towards his house. He does this with 42 women. before he's busted. Okay. Now, the range of these women, their ages ranged anywhere from 11 years old to 30 years old. Okay. So it's not like he had like a certain demographic he went after. It was really just the people that came to him looking for help, basically. If somebody was needing anything, he would just lead them out there to the sugarcane field, and he would just, kill them and leave them out there with their head pointed towards his home. Meanwhile, he's at home. By the way, he has 3 wives, and they're all sisters, and they are all helping him do this. I feel like the wives in this, them helping, it could be a way for them to be like, I want some power too, I want to be rich too. I want to have all these things too, That might have been their thinking. But the way he, and also another thing is, if they didn't help him, then they might be one of the people that he ends up killing or sacrificing and drinking their saliva, so that he becomes all powerful. Every time he did this act, it was a ritual to him. He did not view it as murdering somebody. He did not. No, absolutely did not. He was not like, oh gosh, I'm killing these women. It was something told to him by his father to do in a dream, and by God, he was going to do it. But his father didn't say nothing about killing people. Let me just make that clear. Even if he did have this dream, which I seriously doubt, but he might have. Even if he did have this dream, his dad still didn't say, go out and kill 72 women and drink their saliva. He said, you need to drink the saliva of 72 women, and you will be like a huge healer, mystic person, and you will have all the riches, and you will be, have all the clientele, and everything's just going to work out great for you, And so in his mind, this ritual that he was doing, this serial killing, is what it was, because that's what serial killing is a ritual thing. And he had a victim profile. We're going to get there. Like I said, they range from 11 to 30 years old, but they also would come to him when they needed help, because why? He is a shaman. That's what he's supposed to be doing. He targeted vulnerable individuals that believed his power and trusted him. Like I'm saying, he was not in a very rich place. He was down in the trenches in the rural areas. Like I say, he was burying these women on sugarcane plantation. Okay. Now, I did some research on sugarcane because I was like, I'm just curious, how high does sugarcane grow? Because how did nobody find 42 bodies after all this time? Well, it can grow up to 23 feet tall. So I kind of get it. And it's very dense. So of course, as a plantation, they plant it all really close together. And so he found this place where he could go and hide his magical workings and absorb their power, through their head that's pointed towards the house. I apologize for that. So you're probably wondering, how did he get busted? Well, I found one story, okay? How he got busted was in April 24th, 1997. That's when he got busted. So he started in 86 and he ended in 1997. That's a lot of women. It's 42, as a matter of fact, okay? He never got to 72, unfortunately. Actually, fortunately. Like I say, on April 24th, 1997, a 21-year-old female named Kamala asked a rickshaw puller, which is like one of the guys that pulls a cart, to take her to this man's house, to take her to Ahmad's house, because she needed some magical workings done or whatnot. And so, and she doesn't give a time for him to come back to get her, She's like, just leave me here. Don't worry about it. You know, don't tell anybody that I've come here, you know, because it was a little bit taboo, I guess, for this girl to be doing what she was doing. And so the driver guy was like, okay, peace out, see you later. And he drops her off at Ahmad's house. Now, it's not but just a few days later, of course, that night he does the ritual on her, and, you know, she is now in the cane field, the sugar cane field. Well, the next day, somehow she was actually found. Or a couple of days later, actually. She was found. And people were freaking out because they were like, oh my gosh, what is happening? What is happening right now? Like, we don't have this kind of thing happen, okay? And so then they start looking further into the sugarcane fields, okay? And they're like, this isn't good. We're finding bodies everywhere in this sugarcane field. And they're all directed right towards Ahmad's house, okay? And so once the cab driver guy, the rickshaw driver, puts two and two together, he goes to the police and is like, yeah, I dropped her off at Ahmad's house. She was supposed to get some healing work done. And that's the last time I saw her. So they go to Ahmad's house. 3 days later, after they find her body, they go to Ahmad's house and they start questioning him. And they're like, hey, do you know this girl? Have you seen this chick? You know, what do you know? What are you doing? So they find her stuff in his house, like her purse and her clothes, because like I say, he would remove their clothes after the strangulation so that they would decomp faster that way. Yeah. Because the faster they decomped, I'm guessing the faster he was getting power from them, is what I'm thinking, okay? So once this kid told the police about what happened, they go to his house. He's like, nah, I didn't do anything. I did nothing, okay? Well, once they found her belongings in his place, then he starts to open up. And he doesn't open up because he feels bad for what he did. Do not think at any point in this story that he feels bad for what he does, because he does not. Because like I say, he is seeing this as a ritual that he does in order to gain power. So to him, he's not murdering people. He's doing what his dad told him to do in a dream by drinking these women's saliva. And the whole entire ritual is all strategically done in a certain way every single time. So finally, he says, okay, so if I tell you guys where some of the bodies are, you know, well, I get some leniency. I mean, what do you think, bro? No. So, of course, he's talking to the police, and he confesses. And he tells them there are 42 bodies in the sugarcane field. Now, I would be very, very hesitant to believe somebody that said something like that. Because we've had killers in the past claim other people's crimes just to look cool or whatnot, you know. But no. They go out to the sugarcane field that he said, and bodies they found. They kept unearthing more and more and more bodies. And then it was just, yeah, they just kept unearthing bodies. And I mean, families were coming out of the woodworks after having looked for their kids or their daughter for so long, or their mother or whoever it was. They were looking for them for so long, and so they were finally finding their body, but a lot of them were so decomped that they could not even tell you like who they were. Like we have family members out there hoping and wishing that maybe they could find the body of their loved one, but a lot of them couldn't even be recognized because, you know, they were so, I mean, Some of them he killed 11 years prior, you know. And so a lot of their body parts and stuff like that, they were not together anymore. And so by him really telling them like what he did and where he could find these bodies and where they can be exhumed, it was really trying for his benefit. He was trying to make it look like, well, maybe if I tell them where the bodies are, they'll be cool with me. But no, they are not. They send him to trial. So the trial began on December 11th of 1997. So that's not that long ago. I was a sophomore in high school. Yeah. So the trial begins on December 11th in 1997, and he has 363 charges brought against him. Like 300 and some odd pages of charges come out towards this man, okay? He still says, I'm innocent. I didn't murder anybody. I'm not a serial killer. You know, he was not getting any kind of sexual gratification from it. No. He wasn't doing it to get off. He wasn't doing it to be spiteful. In his head, he was doing it to help his shamanism, to increase his power as a mystic healer, okay? That's the way that he was looking at this. And because he'd been doing it for so long, that's the only way he could look at this. It never was, oh yeah, I murdered these girls. It was, I murdered them so that I could be more powerful. And by the way, P.S., my dad told me to. I mean, give me a break. Now, like I said earlier, he was not the only one that got in trouble for this. His 3 wives got in trouble for it as well. Especially one of them. Now, all of his wives were sisters. I just can't imagine that. But the way my husband was telling me yesterday was that if you have a brother or something like that in your family and they pass, then you take on the responsibility of his wife that's still around. I am not sure if that's how they do it in Indonesia. I was telling him about this and he was giving me information like that because he's super smart. And I thought that was really interesting, that, you know, they do that, and it's actually more of like a family thing. And so I actually thought he had married 3 sisters. Maybe he did, you know, we don't have much background information on this. Most of the videos I found were not in a language that I could understand, unfortunately. And I don't know anybody that speaks anything like that, unfortunately. But to me, one of his wives was tried as an accomplice. Now, these 3 women said that the cops tortured them and were like, hey, you need to tell us things. What is going on? We want to know, blah, 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 blah. And so supposedly, according to the wives, they were bullied or harassed into saying that they helped him, which in actuality, you got to think about it. He had to have help, you know. He probably had his wives going out and saying, oh, my husband is the best shaman. He healed my broken toe within a day, or he brought me so many riches, you know, as soon as I married him, I just became the richest person. You know, I could see them going around town and kind of filling people's heads full of crap, you know, about him. Because in most shamanistic cultures, shamans come from a long line of shamans. They do. It's like knowledge being passed down through generation after generation after generation after generation. So for this man to just straight up say, hey, I'm a shaman, he was going to have to make people believe it, because he was a cattle breeder. He wasn't brought up to be a shaman, okay? He was a cattle breeder, guys. But in order to make himself look better, not only to himself, but to his wives, he started this mission of, instead of waiting for 72 women to pass and drinking their saliva, which I would not recommend that in any way, shape, or form, okay? He still decides he's going to take their life, and he does it in a certain type of way that to us makes him look like a serial killer, because it's serial killing. He's doing a certain type of person, a woman between 11 and 30, who's coming to him for mystical help, okay? And they also are wanting to be beautiful, or they're wanting to be rich. And so he says, okay, this is my sign. This is my sign that this woman has come. So this is the life that I must take, type deal. And so he goes over the ritual. He leads them out to the sugarcane field. He says, hey, I'm going to bury you up to your waist. But don't worry, it's all part of the ritual. You'll be fine. You'll be perfectly fine, you know. It's all part of it. It's all one big thing to just lay back and enjoy. And then he would take a cord and he would strangle them by killing them. And then he would take their clothes to make them, you know, decompose faster, and then bury them with their head pointed towards his house. And I know I keep saying that, but it's so bizarre, because all I can see are like bodies sitting up halfway with their heads like pointed towards his house. Like, I don't know if he laid them down to bury them or if he left them sitting straight up. I couldn't, that wasn't very clear. But either way, and of course after he strangled them, he would drink their saliva. That was another part. So each and every single part of this, to him in his head, was a ritual. This wasn't murder. He was doing this to better his own life. So no, this wasn't murder. This especially wasn't serial killing, you know. But that's literally the example of a serial killer, as somebody that kills in the same exact way over and over. Whether you want to call it ritualistic or not, it's serial. His trial went on for a while. It went on for a while. He was finally, like I say, it started in December and it ended of April 27th in 1998. So it took 5 or 6 months for them to go through every single one of his charges, because like I said, he had 300 and something pages worth of charges they had to go through. And one of his wives also got sentenced as well, because of course old dude was convicted, and he was convicted to death by firing squad. And his wife was also sentenced to death by firing squad as well. This case upset Indonesia so much. Like, I'm sure there's so much more information about it over there. But it really, really, really took a lot of trust out of the rural people, because they believed that he was a shaman. And so from then on, everybody was incredibly wary of shamans. They were like, oh, you know, his ritual might be to kill me and drink my blood. Like, I don't know, you know. And so they were very wary about, well, we can't go see, you know, I don't have enough money to go see a traditional doctor. Maybe I only have enough money to go see the local healer. You know, can I trust that local healer now? That became a problem as well. July 10th, he was put to death by firing squad. And that was the end of Ahmad. Now, his wife, that also got, you know, hit by the firing squad, supposedly, she got her sentence reduced to life in prison for her involvements in luring these women, you know, to be healed by her husband, the shaman, supposedly. So she does stay in prison, you know, for life, but he gets shot by firing squad. And then begins, you know, of course, these people trying to figure out who all these women belong to, okay? And so once Ahmad is passed, he's dead, he's no longer with us, they try to bury his body in a public cemetery, just like authorities do. But there are over 100 family members there of these 42 women that are just not having it. they are not having this man's body buried in the cemetery. They were like, no, this is not happening, bro. Sorry. Nope. Turn around. Take him back. And as far as when I read, they still had him in his body somewhere else because they couldn't bury him yet. People were that angry that all these people came out, the family members, and they were like, no, you're not burying this man. Look at how he did our daughters, our mothers. Like, look how he did them. Why should he be buried correctly when he did this to our people? You know? I mean, but the thing that bothers me the most is that he never sees it that way. He only sees it, he's very narcissistic, this guy. He only sees it as a way to get ahead in the world. And he doesn't care what he has to do to get there. His motives. What were his motives? To gain power, you guys. I mean, like I say, it was all in the ritual. I don't even think it mattered what kind of female it was. It was all about the ritual and enhancing his power as a shaman. Every part of this was viewed as a ritual to him, a sacrifice, with an elaborate system of a half burial, strangulation, drinking their saliva, removing their clothes, and facing them towards his house. This was his utter and total belief system. To him, it was not murder. It was very much so premeditated. Very, very much so. And this was, like I say, even the drinking of the saliva was part of his belief that he could be more powerful the more saliva he drank from dead women. I don't know, guys. I'm with you on that. So like I told you guys, he did not see himself as a murderer. He did not see himself as a serial killer. No, he was none of these things. He was just a practitioner of a very specific magic tradition. No matter how backwards it is. But that's what happened. This man kills 42 women, does it for 11 years without getting busted, by having them buried in a cane field, pointed towards his house, all so that he could gain more power, more money, more riches. And then he had the help of his 3 wives in the process, who were probably totally down with having, extra money and stuff like that. Maybe they thought this power thing would work too. No. This could have been a cult situation, guys. He might have had them had their own specific ritual within ritual. I just thought about that. He might have had them have their own certain type of thing that they do for the ritual, and then he finishes out the ritual. I guarantee you they did, because he had them thinking that, oh yeah, I'm going to gain power because I saw in a dream from my dad. I saw it in a dream. He told me to drink their saliva and I would be more powerful. So he probably pounded it into their heads every single day. Go find me a woman so that we can become more powerful. Go find me a woman that needs healed so that we can be more powerful. We. I can see this becoming a cult so easily, okay? But what really busted him in all this is the close proximity of his house to the sugarcane field. And plus all the bodies were pointed towards his house. Talk about leaving a freaking breadcrumb to follow. I mean, just follow the bodies and you will find his house. And that's a lot of the reason why he was arrested right there. But that was just to enhance his power, because the sugarcane was so dense and so tall, nobody ever saw anything that happened. They never saw anything until finally somebody did. And it took them a long time to excavate this field and find the 42 bodies. Like I say, they did not even, at first, I don't even think they believed him when they said that when he said, I killed 42 women to drink their saliva. I think they were probably like, nah, you might have done it 10 times, but 42, no way, until they went out there in the sugar cane field and found 42 bodies. And then they were like, oh my God. So this is absolutely true. So, but his actions, they demonstrate a complex interplay with psychological factors and deeply rooted in supernatural beliefs. Now, you have to understand, it's totally fine to have supernatural beliefs. It's totally fine. But this man obviously had some kind of sickness before, like, he's obviously been touched by crazy, because a lot of spiritual people don't go out and kill people and drink their saliva. They don't. Never heard that ritual in my entire life. Never would I do it. I would not. But to him, it was real. He fully believed it. It was not a killing. He was not getting off on this. It was not. It was all in the name of power. Okay? Which is absolutely bonkers to me. So like I said, his beliefs may have interacted with a pre-existing psychological issue. Okay? Such as maybe like being delusional and having psychosis, antisocial personality disorder, religious and cultural influence. Like, basically beliefs were delusional, but so deeply ingrained within a cultural context, he was absolutely believing it, And he could have been OCD. He was obviously a narcissist. Like I pointed that out earlier. Yeah, he was definitely a narcissist. So basically what happened in the aftermath of all this was, like I say, a lot of people stopped trusting shamans in Indonesia for a while because of this man. And his position as a self-proclaimed healer, he would have had women come to him for support, whether it's their health, their beauty, or their money. And he used that because he knew that he already had their trust. So he abused that trust by making them think that what he was doing was part of a ritual for them. But obviously it was not. This entire ritual was his whole life. And so to him, the only thing he was doing was feeding his obvious psychosis of thinking that you can draw energy from a dead body. But it was deeply ingrained in him. Over an 11-year span of doing something, you will convince yourself that you're not doing anything bad. After a while, it's like eating breakfast. Have a client come over, take them to the sugarcane field, Have each wife do what they need to do in these situations, And like I say, his crimes damaged the public's trust in traditional healers and spiritual practitioners. And this brought about like a really bad reputation for people that had claimed magical abilities. So in Indonesia during this time, and this wasn't too long ago, like I say, this blew the lid off a lot of people using traditional shamanistic healers in Indonesia just because of this one guy, because of his abuse of power. Never mind the fact that he never came from like a long line of shamans. That's something that should have been looked at, but I do believe that his wives had a lot of influence over getting women to come to their husband's house because he was the greatest shaman they knew, He can do anything. He can make you beautiful. He can make a rich man fall for you. He can make you rich. Just come on over. Come hang out. And so I see him using his wives as little disciples to go around and whisper little things in people's ear about, Ahmad can do this, Ahmad can do that, and you should really go see Ahmad, you know. So, but that's our story for today. A man who thinks he's a shaman, a self-proclaimed shaman, ends up having a dream that his father tells him to drink the saliva of 72 women. And instead of, I guess, waiting for 72 women to die, he just decided to start murdering his clients. And then he would bury them halfway up to their waist, strangle them, drink their saliva, take their clothes, bury them with their heads pointed towards his house. And that was all in a day's work for him. He didn't see it as murder. He didn't see it as serial killing, which it was. He's a serial killer, point blank, period. Whether he wants to believe that or not, that's what he is. And did he ever get more powerful after 11 years doing it? I mean, he did get busted, so I guess not. Anyway, I'm so glad you guys watched this. Thank you so much. I appreciate y'all being here and sticking around. And I really enjoyed doing these so much, so I really appreciate y'all. And please give me a follow if you don't mind, and I'll see you guys in the next one.